back to Living Passionately with Pat Brown. Today, I have the pleasure of interviewing Mr. Corie Mapp. Corie and I grew up in the same neighborhood in Barbados, Clifton Hall. Shout out to Clifton Hall. At totally different times, but I know Corie's family very well, and I am really excited to have Corie to speak with him to learn a bit about his journey and where he is today. And of course, this channel is always about encouraging, motivating, and just helping you to stay focused on your goals, whatever it is that you may do. That life sometimes is, it don't always turn out the way we planned it, but despite whatever challenges may come our way, we can always pivot, move ahead, and continue to live a life that is pleasing, enjoyable, and encouraging to others. So welcome, Corie.
Thank you very much for having me.
Pleasure. So Corie now lives in
Swindon in the UK.
In the UK.
Southwest England.
Corie is going to share a little bit about his journey. Corie left Barbados to join the British military. You know, Barbados used to be a British colony. It's no longer a British colony because it's now a republic, but we were able to move to our residents of Barbados. We're able to move to London, to England, sorry, and go to school. And I just learned join the military also. So Corie, tell us a little bit about you moving and joining the British Army.
So again, thanks for having me. I left in 2005, I want to say, to join the Household Cavalry Regiment of the British Army. The Household Cavalry is a regiment that is broken down into two parts. One part being ceremonial, the other part being formation reconnaissance. So the ceremonial part is on horseback in London. So the part where you will see like the horses that escort the King's carriage, no?
Okay.
The guys, they're dressed in red tunics or blue tunics with the hats on with the plumes.
Yeah.
So I used to do that as well as going on tour to different countries on the war side as well. But yeah, I guess everyone knows now by now I got injured in 2010 while I was out in Afghanistan serving.
So first you were part of that, was it called a Queens Escort or something like that?
It's the Household Cavalry.
The Household Cavalry.
So essentially it's a Royal Horse Guard.
Okay. Okay, so I didn't realize that being part of that, because of course sometimes you would see it when the Queen was out and whatnot. I didn't know that you also were, that particular part also took part in the war. So you went to Afghanistan after being in the cavalry for how many years?
I think I went after about 2.5 years.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I went over to the war side. Yeah, and we just did a lot of build-up training, traveled to different countries doing training and stuff. And then we deployed to Afghanistan for that particular tour in October of 2009.
Oh, okay. Well, that is far away from home. So here you are out here in the war, and you got injured on your vehicle. Okay, and that's when you lost your legs.
Yes. Yeah. We were assisting a group called the Vikings, the Royal Anglian group, which was an infantry group that was based in the same area as us. So our job at that time was to support them, and we were pushing kind of the Taliban back towards to Pakistan. Okay. And on that particular day, I was supposed to support someone who was injured, and my vehicle ended up going over an improvised device myself, and then I had to be evacuated as well.
I could only imagine the horror of that experience. Did you realize what was happening right away, or it took some time for you to understand or realize what happened?
The last thing I remember was asking my crew commander, who's the person who was in charge of the vehicle.
Mhm.
He I was driving that day, so I asked him, in order to fire the gun or to move the gun around, I'd had to drop down.
Mhm.
And I asked him at that time, you want me to drop down so you can move the gun? And he said no, because I'm turret surfing. Turret surfing is basically, you're driving through a dangerous area, so
Okay.
you sit on top of the turret of the vehicle itself, so that if something happens, you would get thrown off it rather than absorb the whole explosion for yourself. I didn't have that option, so I absorbed the whole explosion.
After that happened, like how long did it take for you to like go through the process of being hospitalized, and when did you realize that you had lost your legs?
I went back to England I got back to England within 24 hours.
Okay.
And then they flew my mother, my mother-in-law, and two of my sisters
Okay.
out to the UK. That
Mhm.
was within probably 2 or 3 days.
Okay.
Basically when I got back to Birmingham, they were there.
Did you know that your mom was there?
I had no clue. I woke up maybe 2 weeks later.
Oh, wow. Wow.
Um, so I had to kind of, it was a bit of a
Two.
um mess at first in my head, because I was
Mhm.
like cussing the doctor for bringing my sister and my wife to Afghanistan, and like it was just like, yeah. So I wasn't too pleased at first, but then I was kind of asking the nurse to take my boots off and a whole bunch of other stuff, because my head was all over the place on the medication. I was on ketamine and
Yeah.
morphine and different stuff, and at the time the doctors didn't know that I was allergic to morphine.
Oh,
So
shit.
the reaction was bad. My blood was poisoned. A whole bunch of other things was going on that kept me in the induced coma for a longer period of time than I should have been. And then I kept trying to talk to my jaw was broken as well, and I had facial lacerations.
Oh,
So I
wow.
kept trying to talk and tearing things,
Not knowing the situation.
not knowing what was happening. Yeah. So I just thought like it hit my face, and but my head was strapped up, and oh man, it was a mess. But um, it took me about 2 weeks, and then another 2 weeks to leave the hospital, and then I was walking the week after that.
That must have
Yeah,
been so
5 weeks.
hard for your mom to come from Barbados to see her son, her only son, in
Mm.
that situation, and your wife,
Yeah,
and
it was hard for her. It was hard for mommy. It was hard for all of them. But I at that time I found out that mommy was fighting cancer herself.
oh wow,
That she had had a mastectomy, one of her breasts
oh
removed
wow.
for breast cancer. So she was going through that treatment, and
Mm.
um, but she made a strong stuff, as you know. So
She is,
yeah,
yeah. I know your family very well, and your mom always with a
mm,
pleasant smile. Eh,
mm,
No, I didn't know that, but I'm glad that she got through and she's still alive and going well
yeah,
today. Yeah,
yeah. 84 and going strong.
yeah. Wow. Okay, so 2 weeks in a coma and then 2 weeks before you could leave the hospital. So then you had to do
Yeah. So while I was in the hospital, they came and um fitted like did the measurements and stuff on my legs and so on to get the legs done.
Mhm.
And I was walking like pretty much as soon as I went to rehab. I was learning to walk again, learning to drive a manual car again, all kinds of stuff.
Okay. I'm a bit lost for words because
Yeah.
I know that, sometimes people like may have like surgery or something and it takes a while before they're able to
Mm.
walk or drive or anything like that. So you got fitted. How were you able to do that? Is it power of
Um,
mind or what? How were you
I
able,
don't know. I think
did you
it's
just
it
accept
the
what, like, did you think about this major change in your life? Like this, I mean, losing your legs is a major, major thing. Like, how did you just,
That's a good question. Um, when it first happened, I got depressed, like in the ICU and that kind of stuff when I had just found out and so on. But I had met I my daughter Jody came in to visit me after I left the ICU,
Mhm.
and she looked at me and she said, you know, Daddy, well, if you are, you know, we don't see you as any different. You're going to be able to teach us to ride bikes and stuff because that's what we used to talk about, the kind of stuff that we used to talk about. So I wanted to be able to still function as a dad. That was a big deal for me. And I thought at the time she was so encouraging and so smart with her words, even though she was so small.
Mhm.
That if they don't see me as anything different, I can't give up. That I have to live the best possible life that I can live for myself.
Mhm.
And it was at that point that I came out of the funk and started to work because the physio had come to
Mhm.
my bed and I told her a few choice words because I was just like, just leave me alone. I didn't tell her so politely,
Mhm.
but yeah, it was one of those situations where you just needed I needed to a jolt, so to speak, to my core. And Jody and my daughters gave me that, gave me a reason to live, a reason to keep fighting. And then I got messages from some of my course mates in the police force back home,
Mhm.
messages from different churches and different things that were praying for me and encouraging me and stuff and lifting me up. So
Mhm.
yeah, I mean, I had a lot of support. I had a great support network around me. So it was as though that like people were lifting you up and delivering you to where you need to be at every time you needed it most. So yeah, it was easy. I don't want to say it was easy, but I managed it a lot easier than people thought I should have.
Okay.
Especially around the third week, I had to come off all medication, as I told you just now, because my blood was poisoned. So I couldn't understand. The doctors couldn't understand why it was getting better and why it was doing so well, but my blood was so poor, was so poisoned. So what they had to do, which was a really horrible couple of days, was take me off all the medication. So that means the pain became real.
Mhm.
And the only thing I could take at that time was paracetamol. So that was a rough couple of days. But we got through it and it was okay.
Wow, Corey.
Mm.
Yeah, for words, I am sorry. Sorry to my audience.
No, that's all right. That's all right.
That's a lot to happen in a matter of 4 weeks.
Mm. Yeah,
But
I was back to work by May.
so you went back to work in the military?
I went back to work, went back to my squadron by May.
My God. And you
Mm.
went to Afghanistan, back to Afghanistan?
No, no, no. I went back as in a kind of a support role. So yeah, I just went back in a kind of a support role
Okay, but you
on
stayed
base. But I
in.
stayed in England, back
Okay,
in Windsor.
okay, okay.
Mhm.
But your daughters were
I,
your inspiration, and
yeah,
your
definitely. And in rehab, we had a lot of encouragement because I was into my cricket, I was into volleyball. I learned to play golf,
oh wow.
which was pretty cool. I traveled the world. I got to do a lot of cool things in rehab, which urge you along physically. So it was nice. The rehab process was nice because they would they would tell my family from the beginning, you know, like don't treat don't treat him like a victim. Don't treat him like some person who's injured. Treat him like a man. Make
Mhm.
him get up and get his own tea. Don't like them stay in bed and tell you,
Okay, to
you
bring
know,
us
whatever, you know, like
down.
although there was a fair bit of that at first, you know, like when I had my bad days or whatever the case might be,
Yeah.
I would be allowed 24 hours and then they would just kick me out of bed and go and do something.
Okay.
So yeah, it was tough. It may have looked easy to some people, but it was a very hard experience.
Mhm.
But
Like, do you have to go for therapy? Like besides the physical therapy, what about like mental health therapy? Did you have to go through any of that to help you through the process?
not at the time,
Mhm.
but that is something that I think I am dealing with now at
Okay,
this stage.
okay.
Because now all the physical aspects of what was happening are fixed. But
Mhm.
mentally, I have friends who struggle with PTSD
Right.
or survivor's guilt or
Yeah.
whatever the case might be. And I've had a lot of people commit suicide, a lot of friends uh
And
commit suicide and so on. So
so does the military there
yeah,
not offer that to you guys after the
they
war?
they do, but I don't know if it's the same in America, but like in England, they're only just beginning to deal with the whole men and mental health thing.
Mhm.
Um, because most of the people committing suicide now in society are men.
Yes. Yeah.
So, and you add traumatic experiences on top of that,
Mhm.
and it's they're even more susceptible to to that. So, I've had a few friends do it. I had one up to last year, and he left his wife and three kids behind. So
Yeah, I
it's
really
tough.
wish that people would start to normalize mental health. I
Mm,
say just like we have a doctor, a dentist, a specialist for whatever, a GYN or for men, a prostate doctor. Like, why is it such a
mhm.
hard thing for people to normalize mental health, having a mental health specialist on your team? I think it's so important, with the things that people are going through, like life is not really the way it used to be. Besides all of that, we just got through a pandemic where people
Mhm.
got affected somehow or the other,
Yeah.
in the process of either working directly with patients or family member passing or something like that. And
Mm.
and it just, really bothers me that there's still so much stigma around mental health. And I really hope that you go ahead and reach out. I hope that you have something in the process, if you feel that way. The minute you feel that way, I once felt that way. Like I started a mental health process way back before, where I knew one time I was feeling really down and I had to really speak to someone. And
Mhm.
I have gone to therapy. I believe in having a therapist to help you through or to talk through things, because sometimes there are things that we all don't want to share just with anybody, or things that you might be feeling. And I think for men, like men don't talk about stuff.
Mhm. There's a stigma that well, not so much here, no, but there was kind of a stigma, especially when I was growing up and stuff, that if you got that kind of mental health, that you're weak, like you whatever the case might be. And it's not that's not the case,
It's not.
mental health is a illness, just like diabetes or whatever the case, whatever illness you could think about. It's just another variant of it, and people don't really understand them. If you make it impossible for a person to have an outlet
Mhm.
to use, that person internalizes everything,
Yeah,
and they have nowhere to turn. So the only where to turn is there's different escapes they will use. Like,
yeah,
some people will use alcohol, some people can use
bro.
drugs,
Yeah,
other people will just not cope and want to leave,
yeah.
want to check out. So
I just
um
stigmas will stop. Last week, I saw a doctor, and she was a Haitian young lady that fought for equal rights at her job here in New York City quite a bit.
mhm,
And she was well known, and she committed suicide
mhm,
as a doctor, a well known doctor. And it was so sad to see that. Like, why did she not feel comfortable reaching out for help? And to suffer through that and then to commit suicide. You would think, I know, like now when we go to the doctors here, they ask you a series of questions to see if
yes,
you're depressed or anything like that.
yeah,
you would think that as a doctor that she would have, but you know, you hear of doctors committing suicide too, and it's really sad.
especially in the last 3 years or so. Um, you have to consider what these doctors and nurses have gone through with
Yeah,
this pandemic,
yeah.
because a lot of the time you have these people are dealing with people who are dying, and these people are the last people they will see. They
Mhm,
can't, they couldn't, see their families. The families had no access to them in the final moments. Like they had to cope with all of that stuff
mhm.
and not knowing whether or not they were going to live through the whole thing themselves.
Right.
So, I mean, having seen all of that, all of these thousands of people dying daily, minutely,
Mhm.
that's a lot.
Definitely.
That's a big responsibility. So,
Yeah.
I have full respect to them. Here now in England, they're striking for better pay and different things. So, I mean, I say good for them because
And the same thing is happening here too, where they're
yeah, they deserve it. They deserve it because they worked tirelessly during that time. So.
on the front line. No one knows. I'm a nurse recruiter. I don't know if you know that my full-time job that is recruiting nurses. And I had
Mm,
nurses that would say to me during the pandemic, they were scared to go to work. I had a
mm,
who was a Muslim, and he said, like, you know, he couldn't really talk. He didn't want to tell his wife. He had a 6-month-old baby at home. He said, Pat, I don't want to take this home to my family,
mm,
you know, and we had to talk through going into work. There's so many nurses that, and for me recruiting them and having them to go to work, I felt guilty as a recruiter because I kept praying, like, please don't let any of these nurses die because I don't know how I would deal with it myself.
yeah.
But
Especially the fact that it was ethnic minorities dying rather than white people. So that was a pretty tough pill to swallow.
really was. It was hard, you know, and then you hearing of, you know, people that you know passing and stuff like that or getting sick. It was really difficult. But
Mhm,
you know, getting back to the stigma with this, the mental health, like I really wish that people would normalize and healthcare environments would normalize treating people with
mhm.
mental health issues as something that's normal instead of it getting worse, because that's what happens when people don't get treatment. It just gets
Yes.
worse.
In
Yeah.
America, you have the statistic given in America is 22 veterans or 22 soldiers a day. I think we get like something like 40 or 50 in a year. So we don't because but your military is a hell of a lot bigger than ours. But we get something like 40 or 50 in a year, and even 40 or 50 in a year is too much.
It is. One is too much.
So
You know, fighting for
yeah, I mean,
who's fighting for you at the end of the day to make sure that you're good in your mental health. You know, like who makes sure that you're okay. And the military is mostly made up of men in whatever country you go to. And we know
mhm,
that then, like you said, it's like you don't want to appear like you're soft and reaching out for help. Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. You can't allow it to just sit and fester. One of the things that I work on, especially with my kids, is we try and talk about things that are affecting us personally. So
Mhm.
I mean, as parents, you gotta limit what you tell your kids in a sense because like you don't want them taking on your extra baggage. But it's good to get them to understand from young that they have outlets to go to and that they don't have to bear things on their own
That
or
is
face things on their own.
because unfortunately
So
we have little kids here too that commit suicide from things like being bullied in school.
cyberbullying, yeah.
And that's really great to get your children to have that open and honest relationship and know that they can come to you with anything. Yeah. So Corie, now after all of this that you've gone through, and I see now that you are part of the para-bobsleigh team.
Yeah, that happened around 2014, I
Mhm.
want to say. Yeah, I was playing volleyball at a tournament, and one of the people who was responsible for sports recovery invited me to come to Calgary to try it. So at
Okay.
the time, at first, I remember saying to him, but I broken enough already, though. So like, go and try somebody else. But they taught me to play golf. They got me back into cricket and different things. So they say you have natural hand-eye coordination and a sports IQ. So we want you to try. This is something that we feel you'll be really good at.
Mhm.
So I went to Calgary, where they did the film Cool Runnings. I don't
Okay.
know if you remember.
Yeah,
Right.
okay.
So I went there in 2014 and they put me in a two-man sled and pushed me off, and the rest is history.
Oh, wow.
I did well at it. The coaches immediately said to me, "Well, Corie, you know, you everything we've told you to do, you've done. All the corrections we've told you to do, you've understood and whatnot. So, you know, we'd like you to be part of the elite program going forward." So I said, yeah. And then I had my first official race in 2015 and
Mhm.
won it.
And you won that race.
Yeah, the very first para-bobsleigh race in history.
Wow. That's awesome. Was that the Invictus game or is that a different?
No, no. This is like competing on international level.
Okay.
So like the Invictus Games is just like an Olympic Games for NATO,
Okay,
if
okay.
that makes sense.
Yeah.
It's just like all the people that were in the in National Security Afghan Force,
Mhm.
um, plus NATO, they came together and did because we on like part of our recovery process was just getting involved in sport, a
Oh,
lot of sport.
okay.
And we used to go to this thing called the Warrior Games in America, in Colorado.
Yeah.
And Prince Harry came out to the Warrior Games and with us and saw this, and he thought, why don't we do this so that all the nations
Mm-hmm.
that we fight with are included? And that's how the Invictus Games was born. But
Oh,
but it's not like international Olympic committee sport. It bobsleigh is Olympic committee sport type
oh,
situation.
mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I compete for Great Britain. I have attempted to compete for Barbados, but it's just one of them things that it didn't happen and
Mhm. It didn't happen. Move on.
it
Okay.
didn't happen.
So now you're a part of you've done the Olympics and the bobsleigh for
No, I haven't done the Olympics yet. Hopefully, I'm hoping to go to 2026
okay.
or 2030.
Okay. But so far you've had lots of great results on the bobsleigh because I was reading up about you and you had all these different trophies and won and been to
Yeah,
all these different
yeah.
countries and
So far, I've managed to be World Cup champion 1 year.
mhm.
But I've been in the top three for 7 of 9 years so far.
Oh wow.
So I'm doing good. I'm doing all right.
That's great.
But
Congratulations.
thank you, thank you. I appreciate that.
Do you practice like around like year round or did certain times of the year that you'll practice for the bobsleigh
In terms of being on the ice, no.
on the ice,
But
right? Okay.
in terms of mental application, learning things like juggling, things to help enhance your cognitive skills, so to speak,
Mm-hmm.
to speed up response times. Like it's a lot of the stuff that the F1 drivers do, we'll do because it's the same reaction time,
Uh,
hundreds of a second and that kind of stuff.
oh,
So, but outside of that, it's just normal strength and conditioning. I do a lot of CrossFit. Yeah.
yeah, I see this in one of your pictures. I was surfing in that and I was like, whoa, he looks buff. So that's awesome. And looking at the bobsled, like the path, the ice that you go through, it looks really narrow. How do you learn to maneuver through that?
So you know how like on an equestrian course, you will walk the course before with your coaches.
Uh-huh.
We do the same thing in bobsleigh. So
Okay.
we walk down or up the ice, learn the corners, understand the track. Well, first and foremost, before you get to the track as a pilot, you have to know what you're doing. You have to know which way the corners go, um, and what the basics of what you're expected to do. So the minimum you could turn up to a track knowing is
Oh,
where the corners go, which way the
okay.
corners go. So that's something that I've always been able to collect that information really quickly and
Oh,
then be able to correct anything that happening along the way. So it's always been relatively easy to understand for me.
cognitive skills. So you're just pretty sharp.
Yeah. You try it. You try it. Yeah, yeah.
Well, I mean, that's really outstanding to come back and do the bobsleigh and then, and just to go through that process, I was looking at it and I was like, oh my goodness, like how do you, do you even do that? Like, makes me realize like no excuses, you know what I mean? Like if you
Yeah,
really want to do something, you can really make it happen with the right mindset
mindset.
and discipline.
Correct.
Gosh.
In the end, the only person that can stop you from progressing in this life is yourself. And for me, I always thought if I had, now that I look back at it, like outside of the fact that I have my daughters to encourage me or so,
Mm,
I thought to myself, if the nurses and the doctors and all these people that fought to get me to live to this point, if I gave up, no, that would be a sore disappointment for them,
oh,
for all the investment that they're putting into me as a person. And then on top of that, God gave me the opportunity to do something with my life. I don't know what that purpose is yet. I hopefully he will reveal it at some point. I don't know. But
I think
hopefully,
you're already living part of that purpose, whether or not you realize it, to go through losing your legs and to persevere with such a great attitude. The way you continue to grow and build yourself. I think that you're already living that purpose because people can see you and be encouraged. I'm encouraged. I can only imagine how many others don't know. There could be some little boy or girl sitting in Clifton Hall that wants to leave and is scared, and they could see
mm,
Corie Mapp. He did this, and look at him today, sitting here, comfortable, relaxed like a mat. Because
mhm,
I remember your parents being like that. I know your grandfather, the
yeah,
same kind of mannerism, and
yeah,
it's a woe or me story. It's like you persevered, you pushed through, and you're sitting here today. And you could
mm,
encourage a soldier here in the US. I'm sure you've encouraged others already in the UK. So you are living your purpose, whether or not you
mm.
realize that, Corie. Maybe I'm sure there's more to
I
come.
never I never thought about it like that, to be honest.
Yeah, I'm telling you,
But that is the
there's
truth.
come,
But
there is more to come. This is not the end of your story. There is
oh,
more.
definitely not. Hopefully there's a lot more to come.
Yeah,
Hopefully there's a lot more to come. But I always tell people I'm a work in progress,
yeah,
and I intend to live my life rather than just exist. And the one thing that I'm trying not to do or determined not to do is to allow this circumstance to define the man I am.
yeah. That's
Because it's very, very easy to look back, to look at your situation and think, oh, woe is me,
yeah,
rather than actually embracing the glass as half full rather than half empty. So,
right, right. I totally agree with you. Totally agree with you. And that I'm sure is challenging to many, many people.
I wanted, I recently, I don't know if if you know or not, but we recently put my story on paper, and that is one of the main reasons behind that, because I wanted kids from my background, especially, to understand that you may feel limited coming from small places like Clifton Hall and St. John or wherever, but you determine the person or that you're going to become and the life that you're going to lead. And if you allow people to dictate to you who you are and what you are going to become, like thinking back to what we were discussing earlier, if you allow people to come and dictate to you who you are and what your limits are, then you will never be successful in life. You got to own your own destiny and just embrace it and go after it with all the passion and desire that you can possibly have.
Everything. I totally agree. I totally agree. Just really believe in yourself and knowing that God put you here for whatever reason, purpose that is for us to figure it out. But then to know that we already have inside of us what we need to be successful. The obstacles are going to come. I mean, yours, has been, I don't know if I would have been that brave, but for some reason we all have our own journey or cross to carry kind of thing. And I mean, your bravery is really outstanding to look at you, like sitting here and just continue to grow with so much passion folks, you got to check out Corie's book. I'm looking forward to reading Black Ice. Black Ice by Corie Mapp, CorieMapp. And it's available on Amazon or directly from the publisher in the UK. Go out and get Corie's book about his full story and be encouraged. And I'm sure that it will inspire and motivate someone. You know, I'm all about motivating and encouraging people to live their best life and to never give up. And we have it here for Corie today. So thank you so much, Corie. I greatly appreciate you being here. And I know that your message, I know that your story is not done. It's going to continue. So I'm looking back to having you again on the show, hopefully, you know, soon, and we can continue the conversation.
Thank you very much for having me. I've enjoyed talking to you and reminiscing about. I'm probably learning a few things about Clifton Hall prior to me.
Yeah,
Yeah. Thank you very much for having me on the show. And I hope that someone out there is encouraged by what we've discussed.
I'm sure they will.